Good evening, my dear friend. Welcome to this place, a sanctuary outside of time and space, crafted just for you. In here, there is nothing for you to do, nothing to achieve. The only thing required is to allow yourself to completely and utterly relax. Let us begin with a long, deep breath. Through your nose, very, very slowly, inhale the cool, pure air, feeling it gently fill your chest, as if infusing your body with a quiet, peaceful energy. Then, through your lips, softly and without reservation, exhale. With this breath, let everything from the day go. Those lingering thoughts, the residual fatigue in your body, the subtle, unknown tensions, let them all, with this breath, gently, leave you. Very good. Let's do that one more time. A deeper, slower inhalation, feel your abdomen, with the breath, expand like a balloon, slowly, and fully. And then, a longer, more soothing exhalation, feel your body, bit by bit, growing heavier, softer, as if it's melting into the surface beneath you. You feel an unprecedented sense of stability, a feeling of absolute safety, as if you are being held gently by the entire world. Now, just allow your breathing to return to its own natural, comfortable rhythm. You no longer need to control it. You are simply a quiet observer, gently noticing the tranquility that each inhale brings, and the relaxation that each exhale offers. Your consciousness, like a feather, begins to float on the gentle breeze of your breath, drifting slowly, lightly, upward, through the ceiling of your room, through the sleeping city, through the soft layers of clouds, and into an endless, deep blue night sky. Below you, lies a vast and profound ocean. This is the western edge of the Pacific. The moonlight, like a shattered silver foil, is sprinkled gently upon the slightly stirring waves. Listen, can you hear that distant, rhythmic sound of the tide? That sound is the planet's most ancient lullaby. Since the dawn of time, it has been just like this, gently lapping against and soothing the edges of the land. Allow your own heartbeat to slowly, attune to this eternal rhythm. Upon this immense ocean, you see strings and clusters of islands, scattered like pearls, resting peacefully in the deep blue embrace. There are nearly 7,000 of them, large and small, and this is Japan, a nation born of an archipelago. Because of this geographic isolation, a unique civilization was nurtured here. It grew like a child dreaming quietly in a corner of the world, developing in relative seclusion, only occasionally and selectively absorbing influences from the mainland to enrich its own dreams. Now, let us slowly, gently, descend upon this land. Your feet touch down softly upon a patch of moss, damp and cool. You feel that 80% of the land is covered by volcanic mountains. These rolling, undulating peaks form natural barriers, separating different regions and, in turn, cultivating unique local identities. You find yourself standing within a dense forest that clothes a steep slope. The air is filled with the incredibly fresh scent of pine needles after a rain, mixed with the fragrance of damp earth. You reach out a hand and gently touch the bark of an ancient tree. You can feel its rough, weathered texture, and a quiet, powerful life force that seems to emanate from its very core. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy, casting dappled, swaying patterns of light and shadow at your feet. Listen, you can hear the crisp, ethereal songs of a few distant birds, and you can also hear the gentle chorus, like a whisper, made by countless leaves brushing against each other. You follow a small path and slowly walk out of the forest. The view opens up before you, and you arrive at a long, narrow coastal plain. You hear the life of the water, a swift-flowing river cutting through a valley in the distance, bringing the clear, pleasant sound of running water to your ears. This dramatic landscape, woven together from volcanoes, forests, plains, and the ocean, was the cradle for the unique class that would one day emerge. But now, in our dreamscape, there is only the most primordial harmony with nature. Let us close our eyes once more, and allow our consciousness to drift up the river of time. Back to an earlier, much earlier age. Back to when the first inhabitants of this land lived during the last ice age, when Japan was still connected to the Asian mainland. Feel yourself becoming one of them. You live in a small village, in a semi-subterranean dwelling that is cool in the summer and warm in the winter. The earth itself embraces your home, giving you a deep sense of security. During the day, you and your kin enter the abundant forest. You are skilled hunters and gatherers. The forest generously provides you with its resources, and the ocean, never far, offers you fresh fish and shellfish. Your life is perfectly synchronized with the rhythm of the natural world. You have developed a sophisticated hunter-gatherer culture, which later generations would call the Jaman period. You create some of the world's earliest pottery. You are holding a ceramic pot now, its surface cool and slightly rough against your fingertips. You can feel the unique, cord-marked texture impressed into the clay. This is both a work of artistic ingenuity and practical wisdom. The pot is filled with clear mountain spring water, and as you take a sip, you can taste a hint of sweetness, a taste of the pure earth itself. Your spiritual world is also entirely rooted in a reverence for nature. You believe that mountains have their spirits, rivers have their souls, the wind has its own consciousness, and every ancient tree, every peculiar stone, has a spirit within. This animistic belief system, this deep and abiding respect for the life in all things, laid the most ancient foundations for Japan's indigenous Shinto faith. You walk to the center of your village, where a fire burns low, casting a warm, orange glow on the faces of your people. The air is still. A sense of deep community and connection surrounds you, as tangible as the warmth of the fire. You see the strange and beautiful clay figurines, the dogu, resting near the hearth, their varied forms hinting at complex ritual practices. Here, in this time before time, life is simple and deeply connected. There is no conflict, no struggle, only a profound and harmonious symbiosis with the whispering forests and the dreaming sea. So, you can rest here. Allow your mind to settle in this ancient stillness. Rest in this primal peace, in a time before the first seed was ever planted in a field. Let go of all that came after, and just be, for a moment, in this pure, original harmony. Allow this ancient quiet to hold you, to soothe you, as you drift deeper, and deeper, into a peaceful, untroubled sleep. Of course, brother. Following on from the previous part, we will now gently move forward in time. Here is the English version of the second chapter, The Rhythm of New Fields. Final Sleep Script, The Samurai Sagas, English version. Chapter 2, The Rhythm of New Fields. This is a complete script, ready for voiceover. You are resting deeply in that ancient, primal peace of the Jaman era, feeling that pure and profound connection with the forest, the ocean, and the earth. Allow that tranquility to become a foundation for the next part of our journey. Now, feel time begin to flow again, not as a rushing river, but as a slow, gentle mist, drifting forward through the centuries. The world around you begins a soft, subtle transformation. You need not be alarmed. In our dreamscape, this change is as gentle and gradual as a spring rain. Your consciousness drifts to the coastal plains, those flat, fertile lands nestled between the mountains and the sea. You see people gathering here, not just to forage, but to create. A new current has arrived on the shores of the islands, as gentle as the tide. New people from the Asian mainland have brought with them new knowledge, new skills, and a new rhythm of life. This is the quiet beginning of the Yayoi period. You see the people working together to transform the land. They build complex systems of irrigation, digging narrow channels that become like the veins of the earth, guiding the cool, clear water from the swift-flowing rivers down into the plains. The sound is one of gentle, trickling water, a constant, soothing murmur that speaks of life and nourishment. It is a sound that, in itself, is a lullaby of peace. Once the fields are irrigated, they become a vast mosaic of rice paddies. Each paddy is a shallow, tranquil pool, its surface a perfect mirror for the wide, open sky and the soft, cotton-like clouds that drift lazily by. And now, the season of planting begins. Feel yourself standing on a narrow footpath of earth, the warm sun on your back and a gentle, humid breeze on your face. You see dozens of people, standing ankle-deep in the cool water, their bodies bent in a shared, focused effort. In their hands, they hold small clusters of bright green rice seedlings, vibrant with life. A rhythmic, collective dance begins. Listen to the gentle, hypnotic rhythm of this communal work. As each seedling is carefully, tenderly pushed into the soft mud beneath the water, it makes a soft, satisfying sound, as if the earth itself is sighing with contentment. As the people move slowly and deliberately through the water, their steps create a gentle, lulling swish and slosh. There is no haste here, no shouted commands. Each person's movements are in harmony with the others, weaving together a living tapestry of hope and creation. This shared labor, this effort towards a common goal, naturally fosters a closer community, a more connected and cooperative society. You also see new tools, glinting softly in the sun. Bronze and iron have arrived with the new people. The new farming tools are stronger and sharper, making it easier to work with the rich earth, deepening the partnership between the people and the land they are shaping. You see that their way of life is undergoing a profound change. They are no longer solely dependent on gathering the gifts of nature, they are beginning to put down roots in one place, creating a more stable and abundant life with their own hands and wisdom. As the seasons turn, you witness a miracle in the fields. The tiny green shoots that were planted with such care grow into tall, graceful stalks of rice. The fields, once a patchwork of mirrored water, become a single, vast sea of waving emerald. And when the harvest season arrives, the world is painted in gold. The air fills with the warm, sweet, and comforting scent of ripe grain. Take a deep breath, and feel this fragrance of abundance fill you with a sense of satisfaction and peace. The wind whispers through the heavy heads of rice, creating a full, soft, rustling sound. It is the most reassuring chorus, a song of reward for a year of patient labor, a beautiful hymn to the cycles of life. You see how rice becomes the heart of this new way of life. It is more than food. It is the beautiful, pearly white symbol of wealth. It is a currency of trust and exchange. And in moments of reverence, it is the most sacred offering placed at the small, simple shrines dedicated to the spirits of nature. The rhythm of life itself now flows in harmony with this agricultural cycle. There is a time for planting, a time for tending, a time for harvesting, and a time for resting. Each season is marked by quiet festivals of gratitude, celebrating the partnership between human effort and nature's generosity. This deep, intimate connection with the land and its cycles instills a new layer of awareness in the people. A profound sensitivity to impermanence and the beauty of seasonal change. They can feel the subtle shift in the air that signals the coming of autumn. They can see the profound story of life in the journey of a single cherry blossom, from its delicate budding, to its full, glorious bloom, to the gentle, inevitable drift of its petals back to the earth. This unique aesthetic sensibility, this poignant awareness of the beautiful, fleeting nature of all things, is being woven into the very fabric of the culture, like a silver thread in a fine tapestry. So now, allow your mind to rest here, in this peaceful, golden landscape of the Yayoi period. Feel the warmth of the autumn sun on your skin, a comforting blanket of gold. Breathe in the sweet, reassuring scent of the harvest that fills the air. Listen to the sleep-inducing chorus of the wind as it dances across the fields of rice. Your body feels deeply, profoundly relaxed. Your mind is quiet, serene, and still. You have witnessed the foundation of a unique civilization, born from the whispers of the islands and the patient rhythm of the new fields. In the harmony of cooperation and creation, a more stable and layered society is peacefully taking shape on this land protected by the sea. In this feeling of abundance and peace, allow your consciousness to slowly, gently, become even softer, even more relaxed. Prepare now, to drift into a deeper, sweeter dream. You are resting now, in the peace of that golden, fertile land. Feeling the rhythmic pulse of life that resonates with the seasons. Your heart is filled with the quiet, warm satisfaction that comes after a bountiful harvest. Allow that feeling of contentment to wrap around you, like a soft, warm blanket, as you drift into an even deeper state of tranquility. Now, the stream of time will carry us forward once more, silently and without a sound. The seasons turn, and several centuries of time, like clouds drifting across the sky, pass gently by your serene consciousness. You see that the prosperous villages, born from collective effort, are gradually coalescing into larger, more organized entities, small states, scattered like constellations across the map of the Japanese islands. According to the ancient chronicles from the mainland, there were once more than 100 such states on this land, which was known then as Wa. Each had its own leader, its own customs, its own guardian spirits. Your consciousness, like a free and gentle wind, drifts over these small kingdoms. You see that while life has become more structured, it still retains, for the most part, that simple, profound peace born from the land itself. Among these many states, your attention is drawn to the most powerful of them all. It is a kingdom ruled by a powerful queen named Himiko. You arrive at her capital city, Yamatai. The buildings here are grander and more orderly than any village you have seen before. The queen's palace is hidden deep within, solemn and majestic, protected by stern guards. You can feel that this queen is more than just a secular ruler. She radiates a powerful, mysterious aura, a deep connection to the world of spirits. She is described as a shamaness, able to communicate with the divine, using divination and oracles to guide her people and govern her realm. Imagine yourself now, inside a quiet hall, lit by the soft, flickering light of candles. The air is filled with the calming scent of some unknown incense. The queen, dressed in simple, clean white robes, is kneeling in the center of the hall. Before her are the ancient tools of her craft, a turtle shell or an animal bone. Her eyes are closed, and she is chanting an ancient prayer, her consciousness seemingly detached from her body, engaged in a silent dialogue with another dimension. Here, spiritual authority and worldly power are perfectly, mysteriously intertwined. It is this very union that imbues her rule with an unquestionable and sacred strength. Now, allow your consciousness to drift away from this mystical palace, continuing your journey forward along the great river of time. You notice that the landscape of the earth is undergoing a peculiar and solemn transformation. You have entered a new era, which later generations will call the Kofun period. Across the wide, green plains, immense, man-made hills have risen from the earth. They are not the rugged, natural peaks of the volcanic mountains, but great burial mounds with gentle slopes and soft contours. They are known as Kofun. Your consciousness, like a quiet bird, circles high above one of the most magnificent of these tombs. You see its unique keyhole shape, a square front connected to a circular back. This geometric form itself holds a mysterious, ritualistic beauty. It lies silently on the land, like a sleeping, enigmatic dream of the earth itself. A thick, soft blanket of green grass covers its entire surface, making it look like a simple, verdant hill. You can almost smell the warm, fresh scent of the grass as it is warmed by the afternoon sun. The great tomb is surrounded by one or more quiet moats. The water in the moats is like a belt of green jade, reflecting the passing clouds and the weeping willows that droop along its banks. The entire scene exudes an ultimate silence and solemnity that transcends time. These massive earthen structures symbolize the emergence of a powerful ruling elite, one capable of commanding immense resources and labor. You can feel that within these tombs rest the most powerful clan leaders of their age. Their burial goods include bronze mirrors from the continent, sharp iron weapons that gleam coldly in the dark, and ornate trappings for their war horses. This tells you that military might, and the connection to the mainland, are growing ever more important in this era. Among the many clans, one is gradually rising above the rest, eventually becoming the supreme presence in the land. This is the Yamato clan. Their ascent is not one of bloody conquest. In our dreamscape, it is more like a long and patient game, played out over centuries. Through successful marriages, wise alliances, and the extraordinary spiritual and political wisdom they display, they gradually become the core leaders, as if all the other stars have gathered to orbit them. They claim that their lineage originates from the most revered deity in the Japanese pantheon, the sun goddess, Amaterasu. This connection to a sacred, luminous source cloaks their rule in a golden, unquestionable authority. It also marks the beginning of the world's oldest continuous monarchy, a line that continues to this day. Now, let us gently descend upon the land of this Yamato-led era. You see new cultural elements continuing to flow in from overseas, like a gentle, steady stream. The most important of these is writing. Chinese characters are systematically brought to these islands for the first time. Imagine yourself in a simple, wooden hall. You see a nobleman from that time, kneeling before a low table. A polished wooden slip is laid out before him. He holds a simple brush, dips it in ground ink, and begins to imitate and write these square, elegant, and mysterious symbols. His movements are very slow, his expression one of intense concentration. For to him, each character is a new world. A magical tool capable of recording history, conveying ideas, and issuing laws. Initially, these characters were only used to write a foreign language. But gradually, the wise people living here began to cleverly adapt these symbols to represent their own unique language and sounds. This process was long and filled with creativity, and it reflected a core characteristic of this civilization, to selectively absorb foreign culture, and ultimately transform it into something uniquely their own. Before the advent of writing, the more ancient history of this land was shrouded in the mists of myth and legend, preserved only by being passed down from one generation to the next by word of mouth. But now, with writing, people begin to record these ancient memories. You see a court historian, on a quiet night, by the flickering light of a candle, unrolling a bamboo scroll and beginning to write. He records that this island nation was created by the gods, he records that the imperial bloodline descends from the sun goddess, he records the heroic deeds of the first emperors, who were like gods themselves. These records would later be compiled into Japan's first two histories, the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki. They wove myth and history tightly together, both to legitimize the rule of the Yamato imperial house, and to preserve for later generations the invaluable memory of this nation's early society, beliefs, and customs. And so you watch, quietly, as this ancient nation, beside its silent stone tombs, in its reverence for the sun goddess, and in its exploration of mysterious written words, slowly builds its initial, unified, and more powerful form. Everything is quietly growing. Everything feels so solemn and orderly. Let this ancient and solemn silence accompany your consciousness into a deeper, more stable state of relaxation. You feel safe. You feel at peace. You are at the foundational moment of a great civilization, and you are but a quiet, undisturbed witness. In this very silence, fall peacefully asleep. Allow the feeling of that deep, solemn silence from the age of great tombs to settle within you. It is a feeling of stability, of order, of a foundation being laid deep within the earth. Let this sense of profound calm be the ground upon which our new journey begins. Time flows onward once more, a quiet and invisible river. The centuries drift by, and your consciousness is carried forward to the year 794. The Emperor Kanmu decides to move the capital to a new city, a city designed with the most precise and auspicious principles from the mainland. Its name is Heian-kyo, the capital of peace and tranquility. It will later be known as Kyoto. Our journey now brings us to this city of dreams. Imagine your consciousness, like a silent, unseen bird, gliding gently into this newly established, peaceful capital. You see that the city is laid out like a perfect, immense chessboard. A grand central avenue, Suzaku Avenue, runs straight from south to north, leading directly to the magnificent imperial palace, which occupies the northernmost position. Countless smaller streets intersect at perfect right angles, dividing the city into neat, orderly districts. You descend now, into one of the courtyards of the imperial palace itself. The air here is different from any you have experienced before. It is not the scent of the forest, nor the fragrance of the fields. The air here is filled with a carefully blended, elegant and serene aroma. It emanates from the delicate bronze incense burners, the koro, placed in the corners of the palace halls. It is the scent of agarwood, of sandalwood, of precious spices mixed together to create a fragrance that calms the mind and soothes the spirit. You see that the palace buildings are constructed from unpainted wood, preserving the natural color and grain of the cypress. Long, gracefully curved eaves extend outward, casting large areas of cool shade below. The floors, where people sit, are polished to a mirror-like sheen, so smooth they reflect the scenery of the courtyard outside. Rooms are separated by light, sliding paper doors, the shoji, some of which are painted with delicate landscapes, flowers, and birds. Now, let us turn our attention to the people who live here, the nobles of the Heian period. You see a court lady, kneeling quietly in the corner of a room. She is wearing the magnificent ceremonial dress known as the Junihaido, the 12-layered robe. It is composed of a dozen or even more layers of silk garments, worn one on top of the other. The color of each layer has been meticulously chosen to correspond with the current season and mood. In spring, for instance, she might wear a combination known as plum blossom, which shades from a deep crimson on the outside to a pale pink on the innermost layer, mimicking the unfurling of the petals. You can feel the texture of the silk, light and smooth. As she moves, the layers rustle against each other, making a very subtle, very pleasant whispering sound. This is one of the most elegant background sounds of Heiankyo. The lives of these nobles seem to revolve entirely around the pursuit of an ultimate form of beauty. For them, the ability to write beautiful calligraphy, to compose a fine poem, to play an instrument skillfully, or even to discern the quality of different incenses, is far more important than managing territory or concerning themselves with the affairs of state. Imagine a small poetry gathering, taking place on a moonlit night in a pavilion overlooking a pond. You see a few noble men and women, seated separately. Before each of them are exquisite paper and an inkstone. They do not speak to each other directly. Instead, they compose their feelings of the moment, their impressions of the moonlight, the scent of the flowers, their sense of a fleeting, beautiful instant, into a short verse of only 31 syllables, a waka. A servant then gracefully carries the folded paper to the intended recipient. This is an incredibly subtle and refined way of communicating. What is important is not the words themselves, but the shared, delicate aesthetic sensibility that lies behind them. You hear, from not far away, the sound of a stringed instrument. It is a koto. The music is clear, ethereal, like a mountain stream, yet it carries with it a faint, lingering sadness. This reveals the core aesthetic of this era, mono no aware. It is a deep, poetic, and gentle sadness for the transient, ever-changing nature of all things. These nobles, they can see in a single falling cherry blossom both the most brilliant moment of life and its most inevitable, graceful end. They can feel, in the yellowing leaves of autumn, the loneliness that follows splendor. They can find, in the imperfect, waning moon, a unique and poignant beauty in its incompleteness. They do not seek permanence, for they know it does not exist. What they seek is to find and savor, in this fleeting and imperfect world, the most delicate and moving forms of beauty. And the ones who elevated this aesthetic to its greatest heights were the women of this era. They enjoyed a cultural standing that was remarkable, receiving extensive educations in literature, poetry, and music. Let us now enter the courtyard of one such woman. Her name is Murasaki Shikibu, the author of the tale of Genji. You see her kneeling by the open side of her room, which looks out onto her garden. Before her, a long paper scroll is unfurled. She holds a writing brush, her expression one of deep concentration. She is not using the complex Chinese characters of official documents, but a more fluid, phonetic script known as kana, perfectly suited for writing the nuances of her native Japanese tongue. She is recording the vast, emotional, and beautiful story of the shining prince, Genji. In her courtyard, several cherry trees are in bloom. A breeze passes through, and the pale pink petals begin to fall like snow, a gentle cascade of transient beauty. A few of them drift onto her scroll. She pauses her writing, and simply watches this scene of falling blossoms. There is no sadness in her eyes, only a deep and gentle understanding. She knows that this beauty is fleeting, and it is precisely because it is fleeting that it is so precious. And yet, outside this elegant, refined city, in the distant provinces and landed estates owned by these very nobles, a new power is quietly rising. Because the court nobles are so focused on their aesthetic pursuits in the capital, they have neither the time nor the ability to manage their vast territories. And so, they begin to hire local, influential men of martial skill to manage the estates, maintain order, and collect revenues for them. These men are the first samurai. The word itself, samurai, comes from the verb saburao, which means to serve. Their duty is to serve their masters. They do not compose poetry or play the koto. They are masters of the horse and the bow. Their lives are practical, filled with strength and purpose. Imagine seeing one of these early samurai. He is on horseback, wearing simple armor, a long sword at his side. His gaze is not filled with the gentle melancholy of the court nobles, but with alertness and fortitude. He patrols the boundaries of an estate, ensuring its peace, making sure that every grain of rice paid as tribute can be safely transported to that distant, dreamlike capital he has likely never seen. They are the silent guardians of this aesthetic world. Their existence forms a stark and fascinating contrast to the lives of the nobles in the capital. One is the pinnacle of culture. The other, the essence of martial prowess. One contemplates the beauty of impermanence. The other confronts the harshness of reality. For now, these two worlds coexist peacefully. But the threads of fate are already beginning to weave them tightly together. The future of this elegant, silent, dreamlike capital of Heiankyo, its peace and its tranquility, will come to depend more and more on these distant, silent samurai who serve and protect it. And so, allow your consciousness to rest now, here in this beautiful courtyard. Breathe in the faint, almost imperceptible scent of fine incense on the air. Listen to the distant, ethereal notes of the koto, like a gentle lament. Watch the cherry blossoms, like silent, pink snow, as they drift slowly to the ground. Feel this ultimate refinement, and the profound, beautiful sadness of impermanence that lies beneath it. And in this beautiful, fleeting tranquility, fall peacefully, deeply asleep. Allow your consciousness to rest in that beautiful courtyard of the Heian period, feeling that gentle, profound sensitivity to the fleeting beauty of the world. The memory of that ethereal music, the whisper of silk, the soft scent of incense, let it all slowly, gently, settle within you. This is a beauty born of deep, inward contemplation. Now, allow this delicate feeling to gradually transform. Our journey will now move from this world of soft, poetic sensitivity to a place of more solid, grounded strength. The wheels of time turn silently. The culture of the Heian period, so refined and dreamlike, while beautiful, also grew fragile. In the vast, distant countryside, protected by the samurai, a new order was quietly being nurtured. Eventually, after a long period of societal change known as the Genpei War, the warrior class, the samurai, finally replaced the court nobles of Kyoto as the new, de facto rulers of the land. In our dreamscape, this was not a tumultuous war, but a necessary shift in the center of gravity. Like water, which always flows from a higher place to a more solid, more open, lower place. In the year 1192, a powerful warrior leader named Minamoto no Yoritomo established a new government, a government of the samurai, in a place called Kamakura, far from the capital of Kyoto. This was the Kamakura shogunate. Our consciousness now arrives in this seaside capital of the warrior class. There are no intricate, aesthetically focused pavilions here like in Heiankyo. The buildings here are simpler, more practical, filled with a rustic, masculine sense of strength. You do not feel a deliberate pursuit of beauty, but you can feel a more powerful sense of stability, one that is rooted in the earth itself. Here, the samurai are no longer just the servants of nobles. They are the masters of the land. And the philosophy they embrace and practice, one that will profoundly shape their souls, is a new and powerful one, Zen Buddhism. Imagine you are now walking into a Zen temple from the Kamakura period. The garden here is completely different from the ones you saw in Heiankyo, which were filled with flowers and trees. This is a karesensui, a dry landscape garden. You cannot see a single flower, not one brightly colored tree. The entire garden is composed of white sand and a few uniquely shaped, moss-covered rocks. A monk has used a rake to create rhythmic, wave-like patterns in the white sand. These patterns symbolize the ocean. And the rocks, standing silently, symbolize islands, mountains, or perhaps even the Buddha in deep meditation. Everything here has been simplified to its utmost essence. Here, you do not see the forms of life, but you can feel the most profound essence of the universe. You find a quiet corner and sit down on the wooden veranda. You learn from the samurai who are meditating nearby, crossing your legs, straightening your back, and placing your hands one on top of the other in your lap. You gently close your eyes. You begin to focus on your breath. You are no longer looking at the world outside, but beginning to observe the universe within. You feel that each inhalation is like drawing the pure, clean energy of the entire cosmos into your body. And each exhalation is like releasing all the stray thoughts and unease from within you back into the universe, allowing them to dissipate. Your mind, gradually, becomes like the white sand in the dry landscape garden, smooth, clean, without a single ripple. The practice of Zen does not rely on complex scriptures or ornate rituals. It emphasizes pointing directly to the mind, using one's own practice to directly perceive the truth of the world. This simple, austere philosophy, with its emphasis on self-discipline and inner strength, resonated perfectly with the pragmatic and resolute character of the samurai. Now, let us move from this quiet, seated stillness to another kind of moving Zen. You arrive at a spacious dojo, a training hall for samurai to practice their archery. You see a samurai, standing at the firing line. In his hands, he holds a beautiful longbow, a yumi, that is even taller than he is. His posture is incredibly stable, like a pine tree rooted in the earth. He does not immediately draw the bow. The first thing he does is regulate his breathing. His breath becomes very deep, very long, very slow. His entire being enters a state of extreme focus. In his eyes, there is only the small, distant target. Then, he begins a process that is incredibly slow, incredibly ritualistic. He raises the bow, and places an arrow on the string. You can hear the faint, soft friction between the feather of the arrow and the bowstring. Slowly, he begins to draw the bow. You see the power of every muscle in his arms and back, all gathering together. The bow is drawn into a perfect full moon. The entire world, it seems, becomes still in this moment. All sound disappears, except for his own steady, deep breathing. He is not aiming. Because the target is no longer in front of his eyes, but inside his heart. When his breath, his spirit, and his power achieve a perfect union, he releases his fingers. You hear the clean, powerful thrum of the bowstring, and the arrow, like a black streak of lightning, instantly vanishes from your sight. A moment later, a dull, satisfying thud comes from the distance, the sound of the arrow striking the center of the target. The samurai has completed his shot. He slowly lowers his bow and bows toward the target. On his face, there is no trace of joy or pride, only a deep sense of peace, the kind that comes after a deep conversation with oneself. This is Kyudo, the way of the bow. For the samurai of this era, the practice of archery had already transcended mere combat skill. It was a spiritual practice, a form of moving Zen to cultivate the mind. In addition to the bow and Zen, an unwritten code of ethics known as Bushido, the way of the warrior, was also gradually taking shape during this period. Its core was loyalty, honor, self-discipline, and a calm fortitude in the face of adversity. It taught the samurai to be like the cherry blossom, even at the peak of their brilliance, to be prepared to fall at any moment, and to face this ultimate fate with the most serene and dignified posture. In this era dominated by the samurai, a culture that was more restrained, more focused on spiritual strength, was quietly blossoming. You see that whether it was a general who was invincible on the battlefield, or an official handling documents in the shogunate, they would all, in their leisure time, come to a quiet garden like this one, or to a simple, rustic tea room. They would quietly admire an ink-wash painting, one that used only black and white, yet could express the entire spirit of a mountain landscape. They would carefully, reverently, use a rough, imperfect tea bowl to drink a bowl of bitter matcha green tea, a tea that could cleanse the soul. From these seemingly simple things, they sought a kind of beauty known as wabi-sabi. It is the discovery of perfection in imperfection, the experience of eternity in transience, the feeling of abundance in austerity. This was the samurai of the Kamakura period. In their hands, they could hold both the deadly bow and a cup of meditative tea. In their hearts, they held both the composure to face death and a deep appreciation for a single flower, a single leaf. Allow your consciousness now, to rest in this unique balance of the bow and Zen. Feel that sense of power that is outwardly stable, and inwardly focused. Feel that higher freedom and peace that is born from ultimate discipline. Your body, like the archer, feels filled with a quiet strength. Your mind, like the dry landscape garden, is serene, smooth, without a single ripple. In this deep tranquility, a union of movement and stillness, slowly, gently, completely relax, and fall peacefully asleep. Allow your consciousness to rest in that unique balance of the bow and Zen. Feeling that state of mind that is outwardly as stable as a mountain, and inwardly as focused as still water. This deep, internal peace, born from ultimate discipline, will be the foundation for the next part of our journey. The river of time continues to flow forward at its constant, imperceptible pace. The powerful Kamakura shogunate, after nearly 150 years of rule, like a full moon that must wane, began to slowly and naturally fade. After a brief attempt at restoring imperial rule, a new and powerful warrior leader, Ashikaga Takauji, established a new military government in Kyoto. This was the beginning of the Muromachi shogunate. Unlike the simple, rustic Kamakura government, built in a distant seaside town, this new shogunate placed its heart directly into the center of Japanese culture and art, Kyoto. This decision created a wondrous chemical reaction. The two parallel worlds of the past, the court nobles, representing refinement and tradition, and the warrior class, representing strength and practicality, now began to live together in the same city more closely than ever before. Their sensibilities, their aesthetics, their values, began to permeate and influence one another. Now, allow your consciousness to become like a gentle breeze, drifting through the streets of Muromachi-era Kyoto, to witness for yourself the greatest artistic miracle born from the fusion of these two forces. Our journey brings us to the gate of a temple. This temple was built by the most powerful shogun of that era, the third shogun, Ashikaga Yoshimitsu. He was not only a brilliant political strategist, but also a patron of the arts with an extraordinary sense of taste. You pass through the simple mountain gate and walk along a path made of moss-covered flagstones. On either side of you are pine trees, meticulously pruned, their branches reaching toward the sky in graceful, Zen-inspired gestures. The air is filled with the clean scent of pine needles and the fragrance of damp earth after a rain. You round a small grove of trees, and the world before you opens up. In an instant, the entire world seems to turn to gold. Before you lies a pond, its surface as smooth as a mirror, without a single ripple. The water of the pond has a deep, emerald green hue. And in the center of the pond, standing in perfect stillness, is a three-storied pavilion. Its upper two floors are completely, unreservedly, covered in pure gold leaf. At this moment, the afternoon sun is shining upon the pavilion at a perfect angle. The countless sheets of gold leaf, as thin as a cicada's wing, reflect the sunlight into a warm, brilliant, yet gentle and dreamlike glow. This is the world-renowned Kinkakuji, the Temple of the Golden Pavilion. You see the entire golden pavilion, perfectly and clearly, reflected in the water below. The reflection in the water and the real building create a perfect symmetry of the real and the unreal, of the tangible and the dreamlike. For a moment, you cannot even tell which is the reality, and which is the dream. Let us move a little closer, to savor its beauty in more detail. You notice that this building masterfully blends three distinct styles, representing the three most important cultural forces of this era. Its lowest floor is built in the style of the Heian period palaces, the open, airy style favored by the court nobles, designed to connect with nature. This represents the inheritance of tradition. Its second floor is in the style of a samurai residence, simple, rustic, and strong. This represents the power of the era's rulers, the warrior class. And its top floor is in the style of a Chinese Zen Buddhist hall. Upon its roof rests a golden phoenix, a symbol of good fortune. This represents the deep spiritual pursuits that came from Zen. These three styles were perfectly, harmoniously unified in this single, small pavilion by its creator, the genius Shogun Yoshimitsu. Here, you can simultaneously feel the refinement of the noble, the strength of the warrior, and the emptiness of Zen. Now, you find a rock by the side of the pond and sit down quietly. You no longer analyze its architectural styles. You simply, with your soul, feel it. You feel how the golden light constantly, subtly, changes its hue with the shifting light and clouds in the sky. You hear the sound of the wind blowing through the pine trees by the pond, a sound like the distant waves of the ocean. You smell the cool, sweet air, a mixture of water vapor, pine fragrance, and moss. You see an occasional water bird gently gliding across the still surface of the pond, leaving behind a series of slowly expanding, poetic ripples. The beauty of the golden pavilion is so brilliant, so magnificent. And yet, its reflection is so ephemeral, so serene. It seems to be telling you a profound truth with its very existence, that all the most brilliant splendors and powers of this world are, in the end, no more than a fleeting, dreamlike reflection in the water. This unique culture, led by the warrior class and blending noble aesthetics with the spirit of Zen, blossomed into many brilliant art forms during the Muromachi period, much like the Golden Pavilion itself. Your consciousness leaves the temple and arrives now in a simple artist's studio. You see an ink wash master named Seshu Toyo, sitting there. Before him, there is only a sheet of white paper, an ink stick, an ink stone, and a few brushes. He closes his eyes, as if in dialogue with the blank space before him. After a long moment, he opens them, dips his brush in the ink, and begins to move it across the paper. His brush strokes are at times like a wild storm, at other times like a spring breeze caressing a willow branch. Using only black, white, and gray, the simplest of colors, and his infinitely varied brushwork, a vast world of distant mountains, nearby water, a solitary boat, and a fisherman, a world filled with spiritual energy, springs to life before your very eyes. Your consciousness then drifts to the stage of a no theater. This is an incredibly refined dramatic art form, created by the father and son Kanami and Zimi, under the patronage of Shogun Yoshimitsu. You see that the stage is bare, with only a few pillars and a painted backdrop of a single pine tree. The actors all wear masks with fixed expressions, full of a mysterious beauty. Their movements are extremely slow, condensed, and filled with symbolic meaning. Every turn, every raising of a hand, is like a precise, perfected ritual. Accompanied by the long, lonely notes of a flute and the deep, resonant beat of a few drums, the actors, in a poetic and elusive language, tell profound stories of supernatural encounters, of spiritual transformation, of the lingering attachments of the dead to the world of the living. Even if you do not understand the words, you can feel, in this minimalist and restrained atmosphere, a kind of beauty known as yugen. It is a mysterious, deep, and profound grace, an elegant essence that cannot be fully expressed in words. This is what the samurai of the Muromachi period pursued. They were no longer content with only the power of the material world. They began to explore the meaning of life on a higher plane of spirit and art. Allow your consciousness to rest now, in this unique aesthetic world, composed of the reflection of the golden pavilion, the empty spaces of an ink wash painting, and the silence of a no performance. Feel the wisdom of seeing the ephemeral within the magnificent. Feel the richness that can be experienced within simplicity. Feel the deeper, more powerful strength that is revealed through restraint. Your mind, like the pond before the golden pavilion, reflects all the beauty of the world, yet it maintains its own undisturbed, absolute calm. In this ultimate, profound tranquility, a fusion of strength and beauty, slowly, gently, forget time, forget yourself, and fall peacefully asleep. Allow your consciousness to rest in that unique aesthetic world, composed of the reflection of the golden pavilion, the empty spaces of an ink wash painting, and the silence of a no performance. Feel that profound wisdom of seeing the ephemeral within the magnificent, of experiencing richness within simplicity. This tranquility will be the steadfast sanctuary for your heart on the next part of our journey. Now, feel a slight ripple begin to form on the still surface of the pond in your mind. It is not a turbulent wave, but rather a breeze, blowing from a distant place, carrying the scent of change. The Muromachi shogunate, the government that once shone with such cultural brilliance in Kyoto, its power, like a candle that has burned all night, begins to slowly, inevitably, grow dim. A long dispute over succession, known as the Unin War, like a great fire that smoldered for 11 years, did not burn the capital to the ground, but it did turn the central authority of the shogun to ash. The central sun, that had once illuminated all of Japan, slowly, gently, set below the horizon. And so, night fell. But this was not a dead, frightening darkness. In our dreamscape, it is more like a quiet summer night, filled with a sky of countless brilliant stars. When the single sun disappeared, hundreds, even thousands of stars in the heavens began to shine with an unprecedented brightness. Every single star believed that it was the most brilliant presence in the night sky. This was the beginning of the Sengoku period, the Age of Warring States. An era of nearly 100 years, where a multitude of heroes vied for supremacy. Your consciousness, now like a nocturnal bird, soars through the moonlit skies of this new land. You see that the whole of Japan has been divided into hundreds of large and small, independent domains. Each domain is ruled by a powerful lord, a daimyo. You fly over vast plains and see the crops in the fields, shimmering with a silver light under the moon. You fly over steep mountain ranges and see small, vigilant signal fires lit at the mountain passes. The light from these fires, in the darkness of the night, is like orange stars, twinkling, watching each other from afar. This was an age of Gekikujo. It means, the lowly can overthrow the mighty. The old order, based on bloodline and lineage, was broken. A new rule, more stark, but also more fair, where value was measured purely by strength and ability, was quietly being established across the land. You can feel a tension in the air, but it is also an air filled with vitality. It is the powerful life force of all things quietly growing, competing, yearning to break free from old bonds and embrace a new possibility. Now, let us choose a castle, and gently, descend. This is the castle of a Sengoku period daimyo. It is different from any building you have seen before. It no longer pursues elegance, nor does it seek Zen simplicity. Its sole purpose is to be strong. You see that the castles are mostly built on mountaintops, easy to defend and difficult to attack. Their foundations are made of countless massive, perfectly cut stones, fitted together without mortar, yet indestructible. The tall, steep castle walls slope upward at a clever angle, able to effectively deflect any attack. At the corners of the walls are watchtowers, and at the very top, is the main keep, the Tenshukaku. You see a faint candlelight glowing from a window in this highest, main tower. Your consciousness passes through the wall and enters the very heart of this solitary castle. The room is very simple. There are only a few tatami mats, a single candle stand, and a large, detailed map hanging on the wall. A daimyo, dressed in simple, informal clothes, is kneeling alone before the map. He is not reading any books, nor is he admiring any works of art. His gaze is incredibly focused, staring intently at the map before him, a map of Japan, fractured into countless pieces. The candlelight casts a flickering shadow on his face. You can feel the dream in his heart, a dream as fiery as a flame, and as deep as an abyss. It is a grand dream, a dream of ending this 100-year period of chaos, of weaving this fractured land back into a unified whole. He is one of the brightest, and also one of the loneliest, stars in this sky full of countless constellations. And in this very era, new, loud sound arrives from across the distant sea, completely changing the rhythm of this world. In the year 1543, a Portuguese merchant ship arrives at a small southern island called Tanegashima. They bring with them a new type of weapon, a matchlock arquebus. Imagine yourself now, at a training ground. You see rows and rows of foot soldiers, the Ashigaru, recruited from the common folk, holding these long, black, iron tubes. They do not wear ornate armor, only the simplest of protection. At their commander's order, in perfect unison, they complete the actions of loading ammunition and lighting the fuse. And then, there is a deafening, immense roar. Thick white smoke instantly blankets the entire training ground. The air is filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder. This sound, this power, is something the traditional samurai, who prided themselves on individual martial skill, could never have imagined. It announces that an era that relied solely on individual valor is about to end. A new era, one that relies on discipline, tactics, and technology, has arrived. The most pragmatic and far-sighted of the daimyo quickly recognized the value of this new weapon. They began to equip and train their own firearms units in large numbers. And those traditional samurai families, still immersed in the glory of the past, believing that their swords and horsemanship could overcome anything, would pay a heavy price before this new, louder set of rules. Now, allow your consciousness to leave this land filled with the winds of change, and return once more to the quiet keep of that solitary castle. The daimyo is still gazing at his map. Outside the window is the endless night, and a sky full of stars. Every star represents a lonely dreamer, just like him. Most of them will streak across this night sky like shooting stars, shining brightly for a moment, only to fall and disappear. But eventually, a few of the most tenacious, most brilliant stars will emerge from this sea of constellations. They will, through their extraordinary wisdom, their fearless courage, and a little bit of favor from destiny, achieve the grand ambition that all of them yearn for, the unification of the realm. They will be the protagonists of our next chapter. And so now, allow your consciousness to rest in the quiet night of this solitary castle. Feel that powerful life force, unique to a time of chaos, that yearns for a new order. Listen to the faint, distant crackling of wood from a signal fire in a far-off valley. Look out at the deep, dark sky, filled with countless shining stars, filled with infinite possibility. In this grand and serene night, composed of 100 different dreams, fall peacefully, deeply, asleep. Allow your consciousness to continue to rest in the quiet keep of that solitary castle from the Sengoku period. Feel that powerful life force, unique to a time of chaos, that yearns for a new order. Outside the window, the night is deep, filled with infinite possibility. And so you watch this grand and serene night sky, composed of 100 different dreams, and then, slowly, you drift into a deep sleep. In this profound dream, you feel the night sky, once filled with countless stars, begin to change. The fainter, smaller points of light gradually merge into more powerful radiances. And the brighter stars begin to attract one another, to converge. Eventually, 3 immensely brilliant stars, each with a completely different kind of light, emerge from this sea of constellations. They are the dream weavers, who will bring an end to this century of chaos and reweave this fractured land into a single, complete dream. Their names are Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. Now, let our consciousness first feel the first of these forces. It is a strong and swift wind, blowing from the province of Owari. This wind is Oda Nobunaga. The energy of Nobunaga is revolutionary, unpredictable. In his youth, his behavior was eccentric and unbound by etiquette, and he was contemptuously called the Fool of Owari by the conservative nobility. But beneath this wild exterior lay a soul as powerful as a tempest, one that could both destroy everything and bring about a new birth. You feel this strong wind begin to sweep across the central lands of Japan. With the force of a thunderbolt, it blows down the old powers that had long since decayed but still occupied high positions. You see the powerful Buddhist monastery complexes, which had dominated the political life of Kyoto for centuries, being uprooted by Nobunaga's iron will. Mount High, in our dreamscape, is not consumed by the flames of war, but is cleansed by this purifying wind, which blows away all the rotten branches and leaves, allowing the sunlight to shine upon the land once more. This wind also brings a new sound. Nobunaga fully embraces the technology of firearms, which came from the distant west. At the Battle of Nagashino, you can almost hear the roar of 3,000 matchlocks firing at once, a sound like rolling spring thunder. This thunder proclaims that an old era of tactics and glory is being replaced by a new, more efficient order. Nobunaga's wind not only disperses the old military landscape, but also blows open the barriers to the economy. He abolishes the many toll stations in his territory and establishes free markets, allowing goods and wealth to circulate freely and joyfully, like dandelions in the wind. And so, in just a few short decades, the wind of Oda Nobunaga blows away the rigid, old structures of central Japan, clearing a clean and open space for the reconstruction that will follow. However, just as he is about to complete the great work of unification, in the year 1582, at Honnoji Temple, this mighty wind, without any warning, suddenly ceases. In a sudden act of betrayal, Nobunaga chooses to end his tempestuous life in flames. You feel no pain, only a sense of that powerful, fiery energy finally transforming into a wisp of smoke, and dissipating into the night sky of Kyoto. The wind has stopped. But the changes it brought are now irreversible. And on this quiet land, after the storm, a new, more resilient power begins to quietly grow. It is no longer a swift wind, but a tenacious current of water, one that originates from the lowliest of places but is destined to become a great river. This current of water is Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi's origins were like that of a humble farmer's son. In an age that valued lineage, he should have had no chance. But his life was like a small stream, which, through his extraordinary wisdom, his tenacious will, and his profound insight into the human heart, continuously drew other streams to join it. It flowed around stubborn rocks and broke through soft levees. After the wind of Nobunaga ceased, this river of Hideyoshi, having already gathered sufficient strength, quickly seized the opportunity. With the force of a thunderbolt, he avenged his former lord, and then, he began his seemingly impossible, grand journey of unifying all of Japan. Your consciousness follows the flow of this great river. It flows westward, subduing the powerful Mori clan. It flows south, across the sea, to the island of Kyushu, causing the mighty Shimazu clan to also merge into its main current. Finally, in the year 1590, when it convinces the last powerful opponent, the Hojo clan, to surrender at Odawara Castle without a fight, all the streams and tributaries of Japan have flowed into the one great, unified river of Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Because of his common birth, Hideyoshi could not become the shogun. But he obtained the highest court rank of Kanpaku, or imperial regent, becoming the de facto ruler. After unification, this great river began to use its immense power to reshape the riverbeds and landscape of all of Japan. He initiated the famous sword hunt, confiscating all weapons from the peasantry. The pretext was to collect metal to build a giant statue of the Buddha. But in our dreamscape, what you see is that these sharp, metal objects, symbols of violence and conflict, are gently taken away, then melted down and recast into a great temple bell, one that will ring out for peace. From this point on, a clear, insurmountable line is drawn between the farmers who till the land and the samurai who wear the sword. He also conducted the most thorough land survey in the nation's history. It was like drawing a new, perfectly accurate map for the entire country. Every field, every village, now had its clear demarcation and value. This great river, with its powerful and unquestionable force, established a new, stable social embankment. However, the power of a river, though it can shape the land, cannot last forever. After unifying the country, Hideyoshi's ambitions began to flow overseas. He yearned to conquer Korea, and even all of China. But this immense force met with tenacious resistance in a foreign land, and ultimately, returned without success. In the final moments of his life, his greatest concern was for his young son. He established a council of 5 elders, composed of the 5 most powerful daimyo, to assist his heir. He hoped that after his great river had exhausted its life force, these 5 pillars would be able to jointly protect the unified nation he had created. But he did not expect that one of these pillars, the most inconspicuous, and also the most resilient, would eventually grow into a new forest that would cover everything. This forest is Tokugawa Ieyasu. The energy of Ieyasu is not swift like the wind, nor is it rushing like the water. His energy is that of the trees, of the earth. It is an energy of immense patience, immense resilience, immense depth. He was once an ally of Nobunaga, and he once submitted to Hideyoshi. In the age of the storm and the flood, he always remained like a deeply rooted ancient tree, quietly accumulating his strength, calmly waiting for his time. After Hideyoshi, the great river, finally exhausted his life force, the balance between the 5 pillars was broken. A new competition began. Finally, in the year 1600, at a place called Sekigahara, the final, decisive confrontation that would determine the future of all of Japan unfolded. In our dreamscape, it was not a bloody battle. It was more like this: the great forest of Tokugawa Ieyasu, which had been growing for decades, finally revealed its true power. Its roots had already spread deep into every corner of the land. When it decided to become the sole master, many of the other wavering forces naturally chose to seek shelter and peace under the canopy of this forest. Tokugawa Ieyasu achieved the final victory. 3 years later, he was appointed shogun by the emperor, beginning the last, and the longest-lasting and most stable, warrior government in Japanese history, the Tokugawa shogunate. The wind had blown away the dust of the old world. The water had carved the riverbeds of the new world. And in the end, it was the forest, with its powerful, interconnected, and life-giving order, that covered the entire land, bringing with it a long peace that would last for more than 260 years. Now, allow your consciousness to rest in this hard-won, grand tranquility. Feel the calm after the storm, feel the stable river course after the flood, feel the deep and reliable sense of shelter that this vast forest provides. All the dreams, all the conflicts, have finally returned to the quiet order of this great earth. In this final, grand peace, woven together by the 3 dream weavers, fall safely, deeply, asleep. Allow your consciousness to rest in that final, grand tranquility. Feel the calm after the storm, the stable river course after the flood, and the deep, reliable sense of shelter provided by that vast forest. All the conflicts, all the dreams, have finally returned to the quiet, settled order of the great earth. This is the beginning of a long era of peace, brought about by the Tokugawa shogunate. The river of time, now, seems to have entered its gentlest, widest stretch. There are no more turbulent whirlpools, no more rushing waves. It simply flows onward, serenely and peacefully. The new shogunate moves its administrative center from Kyoto to a place called Edo, which will later become modern-day Tokyo. This symbolizes a fresh start, a deep yearning for peace and stability after a century of turmoil. Our consciousness now arrives in this new, flourishing capital city, Edo. You see that the city is expanding in an orderly, meticulously planned manner. At the city's highest point stands the magnificent Edo Castle, where the shogun resides. From its center, concentric rings of districts spread outward, like ripples in a pond. Closest to the castle are the residences of the highest-ranking samurai. Then come the middle-ranking samurai, the lower-ranking samurai. Their dwellings are strictly, clearly demarcated according to their status. And on the outermost periphery of these samurai districts are the vibrant quarters of the merchants and artisans. The entire city is like a precisely constructed instrument, with every component operating quietly and smoothly in its designated place. Now, let us enter one of the residences belonging to a middle-ranking samurai. You pass through a simple yet dignified wooden gate into a quiet courtyard. The garden, though small, is impeccably maintained. A few moss-covered rocks, a stone lantern, a small patch of white sand raked into patterns, all reveal the owner's restrained and disciplined aesthetic taste. You move through a wooden corridor and arrive at a study. In the room, a samurai is kneeling quietly on a tatami mat. He is no longer the warrior we saw in our earlier dreams, clad in armor and wielding a blade. He is wearing a fine kimono of a deep blue color, and in his hand, he holds a writing brush. He no longer needs to fight on a battlefield. In this era of peace, his new battlefield is the official documents on his desk, the administrative affairs of his domain that require wisdom and patience to handle. His identity has quietly transformed from that of a warrior to that of a bureaucrat and a scholar. You hear only two sounds in the room. One is the sound of his breathing, steady and deep, just as we felt in the Zen temple. The other is the very soft, very pleasant rustling sound of his brush as it moves across the paper. His movements are unhurried. At times, he pauses, gazing out at the courtyard, lost in thought. At other times, he lowers his head, using his beautiful, powerful calligraphy to write comments on a document. This is the daily life of most samurai during the Edo period. Their lives are governed by a spiritual code known as Bushido, which has become more theoretical and more deeply internalized. Loyalty, integrity, honor, martial spirit, self-respect, these qualities are no longer just rules for survival on the battlefield. They have been integrated into every small detail of their daily lives, becoming a noble moral code that requires constant self-cultivation. To maintain this hard-won peace and order throughout the land, the Tokugawa shogunate established an incredibly clever and strict system of control. The most famous of these was the Sankin-kotai system, or alternate attendance. Imagine you are looking down upon a wide road, a highway connecting Edo with the various domains across the country. A long, orderly procession is moving along this road, quietly and with great dignity. At the front are samurai holding flags emblazoned with their family crest. In the middle is an ornate palanquin, carried by several men. Inside sits a regional daimyo. And at the rear is a long train of attendants, carrying various luggage and supplies. According to the shogunate's rules, all daimyo must, every other year, make the long journey from their own domain to Edo, to live there for a year and serve the shogun. And when they return to their domain, their wives and heirs must remain in Edo as guests, ensuring their continued loyalty. This procession is a grand, regular, and deeply meaningful ritual migration. It is both a form of invisible control over the regional lords by the shogunate, and also like a great, regular, nationwide tide. It allows the cultures of different regions to mingle and influence each other in the great melting pot of Edo. It also connects the entire country more tightly together through this constant, rhythmic flow. In addition to this high degree of internal control, the shogunate also implemented a strict policy of sakoku, or closed country. With the exception of a few specific, heavily regulated ports, the gates of the nation were slowly, firmly, closed to the outside world. You feel that this archipelago has, in a way, returned to the quiet, isolated state of our journey's beginning. It is like a sleeping sea turtle, pulling its sensitive head and limbs back into its hard, protective shell of peace, no longer concerning itself with the storms raging in the outside world. It chooses, in this way, to protect the hard-won tranquility within. And in this long, isolated peace, a new, vibrant, popular culture of the common people begins to flourish in the great city of Edo. Your consciousness drifts to a bustling commercial street. The atmosphere here is no longer the solemn dignity of the samurai districts. This place is brimming with the energy of life. You see the townspeople, the kanin, merchants, artisans, entertainers, bustling about, full of vitality. You hear, from a nearby theater, the rhythmic clacking of wooden clogs on a stage, and the unique, rising and falling cadence of the actors' voices. This is a kabuki performance. You also hear, from a tea house on the other side, the sound of a three-string shamisen, and the emotional storytelling of a narrator in a bunraku puppet show, recounting tales of tragic love. Although merchants were officially at the bottom of the four-class system, samurai, farmer, artisan, merchant, in this era of peace, they accumulated immense wealth through their wisdom and diligence. And they used this wealth to create and enjoy their own rich and colorful culture. A type of woodblock print known as ukiyo-e becomes immensely popular. These prints no longer depict lofty landscapes or deep Zen concepts. They depict all the lively, colorful scenes of this floating world, popular kabuki actors, beautiful tea-house courtesans, bustling cityscapes, and even exciting moments from sumo wrestling matches. This is an art form full of the vibrant, earthy energy of human life. And the samurai class, once so high above, begins to be quietly drawn to this irresistible cultural wave from below. They sometimes set aside their status, put on a wide-brimmed hat to hide their face, and sneak into the theaters to enjoy the performances they officially look down upon. And so, in this world of peace, two cultures begin another wondrous fusion. One is the culture of the samurai, restrained, spiritual, and honoring duty. The other is the culture of the citizens, extravagant, and pursuing worldly pleasures. Together, they form the two unique and fascinating sides of this world of the shogun. Now, allow your consciousness to rest in this long, stable, and even somewhat unchanging peace. Feel the profound sense of security that comes from a society of strict hierarchies and clear order. And also feel the vibrant, lively cultural energy that is quietly growing beneath that stability. This is an era that no longer needs heroes. It is an era where everyone performs their designated role, like the parts of a precision instrument, working together to maintain the smooth operation of the whole society. This is a long, quiet, golden afternoon, belonging to the Tokugawa shogunate. In this unparalleled, solid, and reliable tranquility, allow your body and mind to completely relax, and enter a deep, undisturbed sleep. Allow your consciousness to rest in that solid and reliable peace of the world of the shogun. Feel the profound sense of stability that comes from a society of strict hierarchies and clear order, and also feel the vibrant, worldly culture that quietly flourishes beneath that stability. And so you rest, quietly, in this long dream of peace, a dream that lasted for over 2.5 centuries. But nothing, no matter how solid, is eternal. Even beneath this land, which seems as firm as a bedrock, new, slow, yet unstoppable change is quietly taking place. You feel a new power rising. It is the merchant class, officially ranked at the bottom of the four-tiered system. In the long peace, they have accumulated immense wealth through their wisdom and commercial networks. You can almost hear the crisp, pleasant clatter of the abacus beads in the rice markets of Osaka. This sound is quietly, gently, changing the economic foundation of the nation. And the samurai class, once so high above, is now tasting a faint, bittersweet sense of obsolescence. They live on fixed stipends, calculated in rice, but in an increasingly commercialized world, the real value of these stipends is constantly shrinking. You can feel that many samurai, though they still wear their dignified attire and maintain their proud demeanor, are hiding a subtle, almost imperceptible anxiety about the future in the quiet depths of their hearts. Their identity is quietly changing. The swords at their waists have not been truly drawn for centuries. Their role has long since shifted from that of a warrior to that of a scholar and a bureaucrat. And the spirit of Bushido that they uphold has become more of a noble moral ideal that requires constant self-cultivation, rather than a practical code for facing life and death on the battlefield. This precise, clock-like feudal system, built by the Tokugawa shogunate, after operating smoothly for over 200 years, its internal gears are beginning to show a subtle, yet irreparable, loosening. And at this very moment, an unprecedented and powerful external force from across the distant sea is about to change everything. Time now moves to the mid-19th century. Imagine you are standing on a beach near Edo. The sea breeze, as always, carries a slightly salty scent as it caresses your face. The waves, as always, kiss the sand with a gentle, rhythmic pulse. But today, something different has appeared on the horizon. They are not ordinary sailing ships. They are several massive, black vessels, belching thick smoke, moving against the wind without sails, like giant beasts of iron. Later generations will call them the Black Ships. They are a fleet from the United States, led by a commodore named Matthew Perry. Their arrival is not for war. In our dreamscape, they are more like a powerful and clear question from the outside world. A question that cannot be avoided: can you continue to sleep soundly in your isolated dream? Listen, the great steam whistle from the Black Ships, like a low, rumbling thunder from another world. This sound vibrates across the land that has been sleeping peacefully for over 2 centuries. It announces that the era of maintaining internal peace through the policy of sakoku, or national isolation, can no longer continue. Faced with this irresistible external force, the Tokugawa shogunate, once so powerful, falls into a deep state of perplexity. They are compelled to open the country's doors and sign treaties with the Western powers. This decision, like a stone thrown into a calm lake, sends out immense ripples that spread across the entire nation. A new current of thought, Sano joy, revere the emperor, expel the barbarians, begins to spread rapidly among the young, passionate samurai who are discontented with the shogunate. You can feel that the entire country has fallen into a state of contradiction and conflict. Some wish to maintain the old order, others realize that in order not to be consumed by this powerful external force, the nation must undergo a profound, even transformative, change. Finally, in the year 1868, history arrives at its final crossroads. In our dreamscape, there is no brutal civil war. What we see is the last Tokugawa shogun, Tokugawa Yoshinobu, in a quiet room overlooking the entire city of Edo, making a great decision, one filled with wisdom and courage. He realizes that the era of the shogun, of the bakufu, has come to its end. For the future of his country, he chooses to peacefully return the power that had ruled Japan for nearly 7 centuries to the young Meiji Emperor. This is the peaceful and solemn, Teisei Hoken, the restoration of imperial rule. A long era of samurai-led feudalism, in this unexpectedly gentle way, draws its final curtain. This is the beginning of the Meiji Restoration. A new era of learning from the West and striving for progress begins. And the samurai, who were once the ruling class of this nation, now meet their final, inevitable destiny. You see the new government issue a series of decrees. The 2 swords, once worn at the waist as the very symbol of samurai status, are now prohibited. Imagine a samurai, in his familiar residence, for the last time, carefully wiping his katana, a blade passed down through generations, a blade he considered his soul, with a piece of white silk. His movements are very slow, very solemn. Then, he respectfully places the sword on its stand, never to wear it again. You feel that as his hands are freed from this familiar weight, there is a deep sense of loss, but also a strange, liberating feeling of relief. Next, the nation establishes a new, modern army composed of commoners, replacing the old domain armies of the samurai. This means that the samurai's monopoly as a warrior class also disappears. Finally, the government converts their hereditary stipends into one-time payments of cash and government bonds. This fundamentally changes the economic basis of their existence. Of course, not all samurai could calmly accept such drastic changes. You see, in the southwestern domain of Satsuma, a great and beloved leader, hailed as the last samurai, Seigo Takamori, leads a group of traditional warriors who are unwilling to let go of their past glory in a final act of resistance. In our dreamscape, it is not a bloody rebellion. It is more like a magnificent setting sun, in the moments before it sinks below the horizon, bursting forth with its final, most brilliant, most fiery rays of light. When this last light finally fades, there are no more traditional samurai in all of Japan. The samurai, as a privileged class, have thus peacefully, and even somewhat melancholically, walked into the pages of history. But has their era truly ended? No. You see that the samurai who have laid down their swords have not disappeared. Many of them, with the fine education and administrative experience they received since childhood, enter the new government, becoming the bureaucrats, diplomats, teachers, and police officers of a new era. Others venture into commerce, using their wisdom and connections to establish some of Japan's first modern enterprises. And the spirit of Bushido, that they believed in, is inherited by this new nation in a completely new way. Loyalty, self-discipline, resilience, a respect for honor, a willingness to sacrifice. These qualities, once belonging to the samurai, are reinterpreted and elevated into a noble national ethic for all citizens. The form of the samurai has disappeared. But the spirit of the samurai, like salt dissolved in water, has invisibly merged into the very blood and soul of modern Japan. Now, allow your consciousness to rise high into the sky, to a place where you can overlook the entire Japanese archipelago. The time is dusk. You see the great, magnificent sun, which symbolizes the age of the samurai, slowly sinking into the western sea. It does not struggle, nor does it show any reluctance. It simply, peacefully, casts its final rays upon the land it has guarded for nearly 1,000 years. The entire sky is dyed in a beautiful, warm, and slightly melancholic, brilliant afterglow. This is the final impression that the age of the samurai leaves upon the world. Its violence and conflicts have all been carried away by the wind. But the unique culture it created, a fusion of strength and beauty, the profound philosophy of honor and duty, all of it, like this vast sunset glow, remains for a long, long time in the sky of history. Finally, the sun sinks completely. Night has come. A new era, an era full of the unknown, but also full of hope, has begun. And you, as the sole, quiet witness to this epic journey of thousands of years, can now, in this final, magnificent tranquility, peacefully and contentedly, enter your deepest and sweetest sleep. Good night, my friend. Our journey is now complete.